sé cuántos van a venir, como ahí vienen más, pero sí, yo pienso que con lo que tenemos acá, si llegan más, ahí sacamos un par más. exercise, higher levels, higher zone, heart zone rates and all that. Not necessarily needed when just walking around and doing, landscape or writing in your computer or talking to someone. These are the ones that you like to recruit when the heart rate goes above 3, zone 3 or so, when the rate for breathing goes higher and the need for air and oxygen, of course, and exhaling CO2 goes higher. So our baseline is belly and ribs. And then if we need them, we put these on. These are the backups of breathing. So that's one of the ideas that we're exploring in this workshop, which is going to last anywhere from an hour to an hour and 20 minutes. And we're also, as a indicator of lung capacities and mental capacities, how much you're able to relax on your own and just sit still or lay still. And also, on the other hand, deal with discomfort at a bodily level. We are doing breath holds. So we're doing 2 breath holds. One in the beginning, coming up pretty soon, and one towards the end. And in between, we throw in a bunch of exercises that are basically isolating each of the 3 areas of breathing and activating those muscles, firing those signals, those neural pathways, neuromuscular pathways. And just so on that last, and also working with the psyche, with the psychology, with tools to navigate or to go through that journey of breath holding, which could be considered first phase, mindful meditation, relaxation, just internal work, visualization, etc. And the second phase, that's when it becomes uncomfortable, when the high levels of CO2 starts creating that urge to breathe. It starts being more of a resilience game, like a mental, game on, okay, this is hormetic stress. It is a stress that is not going to kill me, but it's going to make me stronger as I cope with it, as I, bear with it. And I'm just going to try and, stay with it as long as I can until, of course, I have to breathe again. But then that'll be a different you after that, because you're just working on, as any other aspect of your existence, like on your musculature, if you lift, on your cardiovascular capacities as you run or bike or swim or etc. You're working on your resilience and tolerance to discomfort. So all in all, in a nutshell, that's what we're doing today. My background comes from freediving and surfing both, and then I, on my own, did some extra research on a little bit of yogic, philosophy and other areas. I've been in front of respiratory therapists and MDs and all kinds of nurses and all kinds of knowledgeable people that have also contributed to the workshop. So some of the stuff that I mentioned here actually comes from people like you. I may be sitting in front of, again, like someone that may teach me something new, and I'm always open. So at the end, we can open a 5-minute Q's and A's, and if you ever feel free to also, to raise your hand and say something or collaborate, please, anytime. So without further ado, guys, the first breath hold is going to be basically everyone is going to be laying down comfortably on their back, and in your nostrils or nasal passages, then use the mouth. And if you use the mouth, I always like to shape my lips as an O. That way I restrict the airflow from this airway, the mouth, and so the muscles really have to work to bring that air in, and it kind of pressurizes it. So I'm able to pack more air in as I enter the air through this vacuum-like gesture. Is a negative pressure that gets created in the gate here, and then it just expands more. So that'll probably be, if you're using the mouth for that last inhale, yeah, that's the pattern. And if not, just very intentional nasal inhale. So that's when I get to 1 on that countdown from 10, and then you hold it for as long as possible. So you're supposed to keep the air in you, pack those lungs as much as possible, and then I'll start the stopwatch. And then one by one, people who are starting to breathe again, I want you to raise your hands so I can know that you're breathing, and I can point out your time. I can go 1 minute, 40 seconds, whatever it was, 3 minutes. And then you take a mental note, and we keep that as a record to compare with the second one, which I assure you is going to be longer because of all of the activation we're going to do. And by then, or by that, we're proving ourselves that when we activate the respiratory system, the breathing system, both, because they're different. Well, respiration is basically how your cells, get that oxygen and produce energy, and then also produce that byproduct CO2 that gets exhaled, right? And breathing is basically the act of bringing the air in and out. And I'd like to also add something before we finally start, is that the lungs are not muscles, they're organs that serves as containers / treatment plants for gases, in this case oxygen and CO2, right? We get the oxygen from the air that we breathe in from the atmosphere, and we exhale CO2 mostly, and someone absorbed the oxygen, and that's all. And for that, we need the musculature around the lungs to exercise that squeezing and expanding function. And all of that musculature, if it's not tuned, if it's not active, if it's lazy, if we're not connected, like in the diaphragm's case, which a vast majority of the modern world population has kind of shifted more towards a accessory muscle, like upper, shallow breathing, me included, honestly. I hop on and off that boat. That's why I like to do this. And it's a constant reminder. It turns out that we are flipping the equation for our coherent or physiologically logical breathing patterns, which will be always belly first, then ribs, and then if you need it, the chest. But again, a lot of people are doing it the other way around. Always chest, plus short, plus mouth. So that right here is a recipe for just nervous deregulation or sympathetic activation constantly. That's your fight or flight being pressed constantly without even us maybe needing it, because we only need it when we really have to stay alert for whichever reason. So that's some philosophy right there with physiology. So let's food for thought, think about that. Let's actually dive into the first breath hold, and everybody, if you like, just lay comfortably on your backs. I'm going to count down. And again, remember, I'm going to count down. When I get to 1 in that exact moment, everybody takes the deepest breath in, get as much air in your lungs as possible, and hold for as long as you can. When you have to breathe again, that means you exhale and start breathing again. Raise your hand. Yes.
Are you going to stay, we're going to breathe in, when you get to 1, we're going to breathe in.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you going to say 0 and stop breathing in?
No, just everyone's got a different lung capacity. So you start at 1 and everybody just, go as deep as you can for, but there's a general, we may be off like 1 second or 2 throughout the whole group. Thank you for the question, yeah? Okay, friends, I'm going to start a countdown. And remember, I want everyone to raise your hands when you start breathing again. And then you just remind that time that I'm going to announce. Those with a heart rate monitor, maybe check within the first, check now, heart rate mostly. If you have the means to also check your oxygen concentration in the blood, that's also interesting. It may be anywhere from 95 to 100 usually. And we may notice a change on that. But most likely we will notice a decrease on heart rate throughout the first maybe 30 or so seconds. Because the heart rate usually when you hold your breath starts spiking a little bit, but then it automatically starts going down. As long as you're really working on your relaxation and just staying as still and calm as possible. Okay guys, I'm going to start a countdown at 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And off we go. That was 16 seconds, buddy. Good job, good job. Good job. And we're gonna break that time later, you'll see. Good job. Everyone, we are at 30 seconds currently. That was 30 seconds sharp. Yeah, good, thank you. That was 35, 36 actually. It's good. That was 42 seconds. You'll be amazed on that second one later on how much you're able to put. That's 50 seconds, 51 seconds, 50 and 51. Good job. Yeah, those who are breathing out, 57 seconds. Those who are breathing out, just breathe in and out with a lot of emphasis. 102, 103, we just break the 1 minute mark. 102, 103. That was 108. Good job, everybody. Thank you. 113. Good job. That was 115. 118. Good job. Keep going. We have a few people still holding. And we are about to touch the 130 mark. And that was 129. Almost there, yeah. Good job. Good job, everybody. We still have a couple people holding, and we are actually at 140. That was 140. Breathe in and out strong as you start moving air again. 148. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. 148. We are 5 seconds away from 2 minutes, and I believe we still have 1 or 2 people holding. I can see some people still holding, and this is beautiful. We are actually currently at 210, and that was 211, my friend. Breathe in and out, move a lot of air through the mouth, better, because that's more like a recovery. And that was 220, 220. That was very, very, very nice breath hold. And I believe we have everyone by now breathing. There's probably one more person holding. I'm not sure, but let's just give it a couple seconds. Write down your times. And at 3 minutes, I'm going to stop the stopwatch because that'll probably be very hard to find at a very first breath hold someone that goes past the 3 minutes. I believe everyone is breathing. Please don't kill me if there's someone still holding. I see all bellies moving. So, okay. That's it. I'm stopping the stopwatch at 3:15 actually. Good job, everybody. We are going to be pleased and amazed at our second breath hold on how much more time in seconds, sometimes in minutes, we can put on top of the first one. And that's due to the activation of a built-in reflex we all have called the mammalian dive, as diving in water, dive reflex, okay? And that's basically activated by holding your breath willingly or voluntarily, deliberately. If you add water, it becomes even more strong, that reflex. And the first trait for that reflex, so just by holding your breath, is bradycardia, aka lowering of your heart rate. So when you hold your breath willingly, voluntarily, seeking for relaxation, automatically your biology and Mother Nature are helping you to drop that heart rate, which helps you to go longer on your breath hold, okay? So on the second one, the body will be more in tune with that, and it's not going to be anything new. Yes?
What does it do to your blood pressure?
To the blood pressure, that's a good question. It may vary, the blood pressure, for sure, because of the...
May what?
May vary, the blood pressure.
Okay.
Very, sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
But you know what? That's a very good question, and I have not honestly paid a lot of attention on that. I usually look at heart rate as it drops, and oxygen, total oxygen saturation in the blood may also towards the end lower, but then it'll reestablish its baseline. But that's something to research. Okay. And I'm gonna look up. Okay, guys. So as we are laying comfortably on our backs, we are starting the 3-part breath activation with abdominal breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, for which we are placing our dominant hands on our belly buttons or lower, our non-dominant on our chest. So the non-dominant looks for sense how we want to keep the chest and shoulders from moving, from shrugging, from raising, and the dominant hand actually checks for the belly protruding or raising, getting higher on every inhale as we bring the air in. Now, for this type of exercises, I like to use the mouth just for the mere fact that the mouth offers stronger suctioning power or more traction as you bring in the air. And sometimes to exaggerate a little bit and get to that goal, we need a little exaggeration, especially since the diaphragm is one of those muscles which generally has been sitting there sort of inactive for time to time. So I would recommend that we do that O-shaped lip pattern that I was pointing out earlier. Make it sound like that, like a vacuum, exactly. And as you bring the air in, the belly protrudes, and then the chest and shoulders stay still. That's it. And exhale with an S prolonged sound, S long sound. Keeping that tip of the tongue against the behind the upper teeth and the roof of the mouth. So pressing against that area as you exhale. So the exhale technically lasts 4 to 5 times longer than your inhale, okay? Keep checking for that belly to protrude or raise up when you bring in the air. And also on the exhale, you want it to go all the way down as deep and low as possible, almost as if you're trying to touch your belly button or meet your belly button or navel against your spine. So that way you're squeezing also those expiratory muscles, which are the obliques and the whole abdominal region, which also serves a good purpose of keeping those muscles active. Good job, everybody. Those bellies protruding, going up. On top of that, you can hold at top. So at the end of your inhale, you can hold for a couple of seconds and lock in the air in that moment for, again, 2 or 3 seconds. As you tighten your perineal muscle, the muscle as you're holding, waiting to get to the restroom, sort of. And while you hold the breath for those 2 to 3 seconds, okay? And then as you start releasing the air, as you start exhaling with that S sound, you also start relaxing that muscle, okay? That is in order to keep the pelvic floor stable as you are increasing the intrapulmonary pressure in those 2 to 3 seconds of a pause, for which you also press out, down and out, okay? Press that filled lungs, those filled lungs outwards and downwards as you hold for those 2 to 3 seconds. You are cycling through diaphragmatic breathing at its finest. And I would assume, I would almost intuitively assume that blood pressure is going to decrease because it just helps you enter parasympathetic. Yeah, so. Okay. These are, I see, well, these are very down-regulatory techniques. Is the opposite to like the, Wim Hof or any of the more excitatory patterns. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think before doing that, before me presenting something like that, I'll have to really like check on each person, like, hey, how's your blood pressure? So these are like infallible. These are just more on the down-regulation side of things for sure. Yeah, there's a breath guru. His name is Dan Brule, and I think he came up with this categorizing of the types of breath, and he names them by coffee, water, and whiskey. It's funny because I know the whiskey does an allusion to alcohol, but what he's meaning by that is coffee breaths or breathing patterns are the ones that actually kind of ramps you up and gets you more excited, and these are good for when say an athlete is down-regulated too much and it's probably doesn't have that will to engage on physical exercise, and she or he has to, and then you practice those coffee style breaths, which will again activate you. Then water is just your baseline, normal, tidal breathing, very conscious also. But then whiskey will be kind of like this, because it's supposed to relax. That's an old school thought, but he just wanted to find a reference for that. I can say probably chamomile tea breath then, if somebody. This is more the down-regulatory, which most people needs these days, including myself. Good job, guys. This is diaphragmatic breathing at its finest. This is basically what free divers will do before diving deep, taking that last breath in and enter the depths, or holding their breaths at static breath hold on a pool, as we are doing on Thursday. So this again is meant to lower your heart rate, help you to enter the parasympathetic branch of your autonomic system, nervous system. That's your rest, digest, and recover. This will increase blood flow to all areas of your body. What I mean by that is the availability of nutrients and oxygen to everywhere, as on the opposite branch, the sympathetic, for instance, the GI gets restricted of blood flow. And in this case, the blood flow is reestablished there and to many other areas. Also, the oxygen usage gets better because you're just taking more time to leave that air in you, just so your pulmonary alveoli, the little air sacs with capillaries responsible to bring the oxygen in, to capture that oxygen and deliver it, have more time to do their work because the air is sitting in you longer, if that makes sense. So, good job, everybody. We are going to do 2 more breaths, and then we're going to transition to sitting position, for which we are now transitioning to the lateral breathing area. That's your intercostal. So 2 more breaths. Maybe seal that exercise with a couple of sighs. Maybe you can seal it up with a couple of sighs and then come up to sitting position, and I'll explain and demonstrate. Maybe a couple of sighs, and this is a very, very good exercise for increasing the relaxation throughout your whole musculature. This type of breathing, again, will just do all of the positive things that the parasympathetic or rest, digest, and recover will do to your body. Relax your musculature, increase blood flow. It is great for recovery. After exercise, to take a couple of minutes to do this type of breathing, it's great because you have more oxygen and nutrient delivery to all the muscles that need repair, all the tissues. Same as, for instance, sauna. Since you guys have a sauna available this week, people are doing sauna after workout because it just increases the blood flow and the delivery of nutrients, and it relaxes the musculature. So, good job, everybody. Anyone wants to say something or share something? Anyone notice anything different in bodily sensations, or as you were doing both the breath hold and the diaphragmatic breathing? Heart rate maybe dropped a little bit, or just your thoughts kind of slowed down a bit, and you had an overall sensation of ease, peace, yeah? Okay.
The slower the better.
The slow.
Is that true? Like, you want to inhale as slowly as you can, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The brain captures those signals and makes an interpretation. So yeah, the slower the better, because that tells the brain, hey, we're relaxing, we're not being threatened by anything, where there's no hazards. The opposite, say the fire breath, the breath of fire, or any breathing pattern that has more of a, like faster pattern, this will tell the brain, hey, you got to be alert because something is about to go down, and then it can work if you are under activated. If, again, say you have a bike ride, for instance, and then you're like, gosh, I can't get off of bed, I didn't get a good night of sleep, but I still have to, my buddies are waiting for me, the pack is waiting for me. Then I myself, in the bedroom, go. I force myself, because it is like, I don't even have to move, it's just still laying, and all of a sudden, there's like light bulbs, like lighting in my head, and like the nervous system gets a little, activation in that side, in the sympathetic, and the, hey, get up, go. So yeah, these are also practical for those. Again, I like to always lean more towards a down regulation, because we have plenty of stimulation and around us, and distraction and stimulation, and so Guys, next one is the intercostal. Intercostal musculature is the one in between the ribs, and it basically helps our rib cage to expand and contract so that we can also gain room sideways and back and forward a little bit, but mostly you'll notice sideways. And so I want to reiterate the concept of that the muscles around the lungs have to be trained as much as you train any other muscle in your body. If you want your breathing to be effective and to be help you with your health in the long term. By the way, now that we have open brackets, this is a special communicate. We're working on a program called Flow, which is led by our friend Misha here with us. And so she's been fine-tuning the program. Is about to be launched pretty soon. And the Flow program is a aleatory, how should I say that? Is a parallel, but it's part of the same thing. People can just come on a week here to do that Flow program, which has 5 biomarkers that are measured and trained and practiced, such as VO2 max and resting metabolic rates and grip strength and the functional movement screening, which Misha is doing all that as we speak and fine-tuning it. Just so you can walk away with a nice, elaborate result of where you're at with all of those, and then, maybe assigned if you have to be assigned some work to do in order to get those, at a good baseline. VO2 max, for instance, is the way your muscles are able to bring in oxygen at high levels of exertion is one of the key indicators for good health and longevity. So yeah, we're tapping into that. If you want to go into further research or information about that, you can talk to her or write an email to us. And so lung capacity, that's where I wanted to get to, which is what we're working on specifically right now, is a key component of all that longevity and good health, realm of things. Because I'm gonna do a little philosophy right here. If you boil it down to the most vital thing you have for survival is the air that you breathe, because you can probably live without food for a few weeks, you can live without water for a few days, but we cannot live without air for more than minutes. And so if you boil it down again, if you get stripped of everything that you need to survive, only one thing to choose, I'll choose air, because then I can start all over again and start building, right? So plus is the first and the last thing we do when we check into this world. We take a deep inhale, and babies, by the way, breathe with their bellies and their nostrils and the nasal passages, right? So that's what we're also encouraging everyone to get to. If there's a chance you may have lost that connection along the way, which is very common, very normal, because of societal structures. And also we check out, there is a last exhale we do before we check out. So first and last, it is the thing we do the most also, because anywhere from 20,000 times to 23,000 times we breathe in and out every day, more than thoughts, more than anything we do repetitively, So if we look at those aspects, we go, wow, breathing and the air that we breathe, it is like, we have to pay homage and pay attention to it and just practice it and just study it and see how can we get it better every time, And again, the musculature involved in breathing is key for that. So this is exactly what we're doing here, is increasing our pulmonary capacities and also our psychological, with all that discomfort that I was telling you about with the breath holding aspect of things. So next exercise is going to be a showcase of how to strengthen your intercostal muscles. Those muscles, again, that will help you to expand your rib cage and also contract it. So we have 2 layers, inspiratory and expiratory. We're mainly working on the inspiratory, the ones that are helping you to expand more, for which we have to put pressure on them and activate them. So we're going to use each other as helpers, as devices, if you will, to press inwards firmly as we breathe firmly and expand and move those hands out. What I mean by this is we're going to pick a couple or a buddy. We're going to pick a buddy and sit behind that person. I can maybe use someone that I know. Yeah, please. Thank you. Anyway,
Putting pressure, or
yeah,
am I putting
yeah. You can just sit and so I'm either you know, I'm crouching right now, but you can also kneel. You can also kneel, or you can sit legs crossed and apply firm pressure on the ribs, and then just breathe, bro. There you go. Shoulders down, hold for a couple of seconds. I can feel the expansion on the ribs as he breathes in. There you go. That was way better. And if you probably notice, my hands are moving slightly out when he inhales, like now. Yeah, my hands are moving out and they're moving back in on the exhale. Basically, that's what we're doing. Appreciate it, my friend. Yeah. And so that's basically what we're doing, is putting pressure firmly. And heads up, you guys are probably going to feel a little, you know, strain in your muscles. So let's just all start at the same time and do it for maybe 3-4 breaths, and then switch. Okay, so feel free to pick a buddy, and we'll get to start. Thanks to Steve for the, you know, modeling. So again, the idea is that don't start pressing yet. And when we're all in position, we'll start pressing. I'm going to count down, just so you don't spend unnecessary power, because it comes from the deltoids mostly. You'll feel it. Sometimes your arms start shaking. Also bear hogging, you know, like if you're working with your dad, you may just bear hog him because he's stronger than you. There you go. Okay, right on. And guys, in this case, we are actually keeping the lower areas of the lungs and the belly in. Okay, we're trying not to do what we were doing before. Just keep it in. So mechanically, we push the air. I think I heard macaws somewhere. Yeah. We usually get like all kinds of birds flying by, and yeah. So we are doing that in order to push the air upwards, and don't let it come down to the place where we were working before, and also keep the shoulders down in order to also not let it go to the tip or top of the lungs when you shrug your shoulders. Try to keep those shoulders down, and you can still reiterate that at the end of the inhale. You know, press your shoulders down, and also you can probably hunch over a little bit and just kind of pretend that you're making yourself feel more packed and robust. That'll also activate the lats, and that'll activate even more so those muscles in between the ribs. And those hands, those pressing hands, will feel how there's an extra little boom, you know, like an extra little pressure going out. So that's the point. Keep those hands pressing firmly. Don't be gentle. And you guys emphasize those breaths as much as possible. Remember, keep your shoulders down, your belly in. All goes to the center, okay? Let's start. Press those ribs. 3, 2, 1. Work with Misha here for a couple of seconds. There you go. Shoulders down, especially at the end of the inhale. Bring them down. Keep the back straight. Press firmly, guys. Good job. Couple more breaths. Are those people pressing, feeling the expansion on the ribs? And yeah, that's amazing, right? Ah, bueno, está fuerte, Mish. Esas costillas se sienten así. Good. Shoulders down, especially at the end of the inhale, and lock that air in and press out. Good job, guys. That's it. Let's switch. Yeah, exactly. There's usually 1 or 2 breaths that you go, wow, this one I could really feel now. Okay, so please.
I recently got an exam and I found out I have a deviated septum.
Oh, that's right.
More
More common than we think.
Should I use my, I've been trying to nose breathe.
Yeah,
Should
as
I
much as possible.
still do that or use my mouth? Or?
I like to always say that, guys, really interesting question before we start. It is super common that you find people with deviated septums, right? Whether it's from, you know, martial arts, you get punched in the face or whatever, maybe sometimes born, you know. Anyhow, if you have any obstruction, which is very common, I would encourage to sometimes when you're doing specific breath exercises and you want to run the air through the nostrils, to press your with your thumb your nose upwards, and even like wiggle left and right as the air is coming in, and you may find an opening. Besides that, I also for training purposes, when you have to really pack all that energy into a breath, I like to use the mouth, because mouth and trachea, just for training purposes, for like affecting positively all the musculature, offers more punch, right? So these are good concepts to understand until we get like a fix on a surgery or whatnot. We should always try and adapt, which will be like pressing, or sometimes I like to pinch one nostril and like pull it sideways as I'm trying to inhale through the other one. And I usually notice how at some point there's a little bit more of an opening, because I'm just changing the structure from the outside. So there's some interesting ideas because I have plenty of people with deviated septums. There's a way you can work your nasal breathing, pressing with your thumb upwards, or pinching and blocking the opposite nostril and pulling it as you're trying to enter the air. Other than that, again, mouth breathing is great for training, and we'll discuss mouth versus nasal breathing in a little while too, like the pros and cons of both. Thanks for the question as well. Okay, guys, so we're trying to become turn ourselves into a corset of sorts, right? Like really. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hágalo también. Una más. Con todo. Okay. 1 or 2 more breaths and I think we're good. That's plenty.
So can I ask you a question?
Please.
Is that supposed to help me, the feeling of expanding? Like how to expand those muscles?
Yeah, it helps you to sort of identify and connect, feel exactly those muscles. And your wife?
Yes.
Yeah, and then your wife.
Girlfriend.
Sorry, and girlfriend. That's beautiful. I like that. It sounds fresh. It sounds refreshing. So her hands are palpating that expansion, and she can get an idea on how her physiology even works by palpating yours. So it's a awareness, body awareness exercise, and of course a muscular training and connecting. It's a muscle awareness exercise for both, the ones pressing and the ones breathing, because through someone else's physiology, you can tell, like, oh wow, I didn't realize that the ribs will move so much and those muscles will engage and really make those ribs like expand, so I can get more air in, so my lung volume can get better, and so that's the point right there. Ventilatory thresholds, and there's lung capacities and inspiratory strength or power. How much power can you exercise over your musculature to be able to bring more air in, and expiratory strength also, how much you can squeeze those lungs, again thanks to all that musculature. The higher you can get those numbers, the more healthy you will be, the more air you'll be able to move, the more oxygen you'll be able to use, the more you'll be able to downregulate yourself, the longer breath holds you may be able to perform, if that's the case, if you're breath holding. You never know, maybe you're in a vacation and there's a snorkeling tour and you're with a group and there's an underwater structure, maybe like a sunken ship, and everybody's struggling to get there to watch the fish or whatever is in there, and then all of a sudden you take that nice, strong, super deep breath, and then you're able to go because you have bigger tanks, in you. That's just an example of how this type of exercises may benefit. So yeah, I'm amazed on how much you guys are engaged into it. So let's keep going. We're gonna go up now to the accessory muscles, and there's nothing wrong with, good job everybody, yeah? So yeah, there's nothing wrong with breathing with accessory muscles. The problem is when we breathe only with the accessory muscles, and that's again, a big part of the population. And again, I include myself. I catch myself often, honestly, like, Marcel, remind yourself, switch to belly. That's the way you achieve that down regulation and that relaxation. Otherwise, your mind starts, going in different directions. And so I recenter myself when I become aware, and I start, again, bringing the air down to my abdominal region. And guys, by the way, breathing, belly breathing or abdominal breathing, these are just cues to tell diaphragmatic breathing. Because it is really, what happens is that as you push the diaphragm down and the lungs are actually, pulled down with that mechanical action, your guts move forward because they have to give room for all that musculature coming down to gain room. So that's why the belly protrudes. That's all. That's why it's called belly breathing. But technically, it is diaphragmatic breathing because the diaphragm is the one, mechanically expanding and bringing the bottom of the lungs down. And by the way, the bottom of the lungs are wider than the top. So the bottom third, if you were to divide the lungs into 3 stages or areas, is the most important one because it is the one that contains the most alveoli because there's more volume. So this is a place that we really have to make sure we expand on every breath so we can make good use of all of that alveolar content that's, able to bring in more oxygen into our tissues and also let go of extra CO2 if we need it. Yes, please.
Are the lungs the same size?
Interesting question. I think the left lung is a little shorter because there's room, that the heart occupies, and so there is slightly less. Although you have a, total lung volume that's measured in liters, anywhere from 4.5 to 6.5, generally speaking, depending on genre, height, exercise level, or fitness level or whatnot. I think the left is a little shorter because of the lung, which, by the way, tells heart. Sorry, thank you. Which takes me to another idea, which is, when you inhale, the heart pumps a little faster, and it's because, again, we feel the lungs on the inhale, and the lung, that left lung, presses against the heart, and then the heart needs to increase its pulse or its pace because then it needs to deliver the same amount of blood with less room to move. So it increases a little bit, yeah. So that's why inhales are more, we can say, sympathetic by nature, so they're a little more activating. And exhales, when the lungs relax, the heart now gains more room and is able to, to beat at a slower pace. Exhales are by nature more parasympathetic, they're more relaxing. That's why we keep that S sound exhale going. Because then you're like squeezing the lungs, they're making more room for the heart to be able to relax more. That's why long exhales are very relaxing.
When you exhale, do you love more because your heart is bigger?
Maybe. I like that philosophy. Exhale and embrace the love, yeah. These are cool questions, thanks. So let's work with the accessory muscles now, and for that, again, we are keeping the belly in. We're trying to keep the ribs as much as possible, again, from expanding. There's going to be always a little activation, regardless, but the most activation, the emphasis is driven upwards to the sternocleidomastoid, the neck muscle, the scalene, the neck muscles, the trapezius, right? The trapezius, both the thing is posterior and anterior, or major minor. However, is the one in the back and in the top, a little bit in the front. You're gonna feel some lats also. You're gonna feel some lats activating, but it's mostly the neck, shoulder, and chest. A little bit of the pectoral minor muscles. These guys, visualize the top of the lungs being pulled up by the last 2 ribs. And the last 2 ribs are actually attached to the musculature. So by shrugging and tilting the head, shrugging the shoulders and tilting the head, you will be pulling those ribs upwards, which will also pull the tissues of the lungs upwards. So you can gain more room. You can pack more air upwards. So you're basically just looking for more room. Downwards with your diaphragm, sideways and back with your intercostals, upwards with your accessory muscles. And again, I like to remind ourselves that these are muscles that we use when we need to, which is exerting, physical exercise, whatever the form is. You feel like you need to bring in more air than what you're able to with only this, then you put this on. Okay, this is how what they're called accessory. They're extras, they're helpers. They're not the main ones. Okay, so this will be also in the same fashion of actually dominant hand on the chest, above the sternum, non-dominant in the belly. So we're trying to keep that belly in, and we are starting to pull from this area, like the upper ribs, all the way up, you know, to the top. So again, mouth, just because it packs more power. The deeper you go, the more you shrug your shoulders and tilt your head. And finally, when you're at the top of your inhale, drop shoulders, puff up your chest, hold for a couple of seconds, and start your exhale, okay? Don't forget to bring your shoulders down and just pack that air as you finish the inhale. Just lock into that 2 to 3 seconds, puffing your chest and bringing your shoulders down. 3, 2, 1. Shoulders down, puff up your chest. Feel that nice pressure and exhale. Visualize how the top of the lungs are gaining more room. There's a chance on this one we get a little lightheaded. It is normal because we're getting closer to the brain and the neck gets a little pressure. So let's do one more breath. Nice, feel that nice sucking of the air and pressing of the lungs, especially the upper areas of the lungs. A nice positive pressure. Good job, guys. Whew, little lightheaded maybe. It's normal on this part of the exercise because we're getting close to the neck and the head. By the way, also the long S sound exhales, which could also be pursed lips. Pursed lips also works, but I like the S sound because it emits a sound, and so the sound also helps you to connect more with your breath. So audible, right? Audible signal. As you exhale with S sound or pursed lips, you are still keeping your lungs with pressure, internal positive pressure. And so the alveoli inside of your lungs are staying open, still receiving oxygen, pulling oxygen in as you, again, keep that pressure positive. And that's what the PEEP, the PEEP, machines or devices do, is increases the pressure in your lungs so that your lungs can actually welcome or bring in more oxygen. During COVID, the ventilators, that's what they did, is to increase the pulmonary pressure. And so there's a whole, interesting conversation there. For instance, at higher altitude, when you get the altitude disease or altitude sickness, you can actually create that pressure because of a lack of atmospheric pressure, that we have the oxygen around us, but it's less dense and there's less pressure. So it's harder for us to absorb it. That's why we get hypoxic and we get dizzy. Well, guess what? You create that pressure on your own by taking a deep breath in, hopefully through the nostrils, holding it inside, and as a full lung now, you do the packing, like pressing. As you're trying to blow the air through your ribs and belly and neck and even the head. And that, guys, what it does is that it creates that internal positive pressure that you're lacking on the exterior, on the outside. Does that make sense? So you push that oxygen into your alveolus. You shove that oxygen into your alveolus. You force it. Yes?
Do you do that when you're holding your breath? Are you bearing down like that?
A little bit, but when I'm holding my breath, I like to just stay super relaxed because depending on how much air were you able to bring in on that last inhale, there's going to be an automatic, by default, good positive pressure because your lungs are filled. That's why also there's a technique called packing, which is when you get to the end of your inhale, you cannot go anymore by mechanical ways from the trach or mouth down, then you start gulping bits of air, like sucking them into your cheeks and swallowing them, just as you were sucking off a straw or puffing off a cigarette, which is not the best analogy, but you get it. You got to get a first stage in your mouth before you push it down the throat, and then it just packs, and then it gives you more air, and it just keeps that air pressing against the lungs, structures, so that the oxygen just keeps on feeding the system for the duration of the breath hold. Yeah.
Can you expand your lung capacity, like literally physically?
Yes, for sure.
Do these kind of exercises?
This kind of exercises and packing and say yoga poses or stretching poses with filled lungs.
Yeah.
Let's actually throw a couple in, and so we can change the dynamics. That's a really good question. And so you guys can also feel like you're not sitting for a whole, 1 hour or so. So on a full breath or filled lungs, we're doing maybe one cobra, one forward fold, and one cow. How about that? All of us, okay? I'll demonstrate quickly, and then we'll all do it. So on the cobra, you just lay flat. Maybe just keep your elbows, forearms in the ground, and go. First, fully exhale. So you start with empty lungs. You're trying to combine the 3 stages now, by the way, which it was the next thing that I was going to do, but we can just jump into this. Once you have full lung capacity in, you can do a variation. Looking over one shoulder and then the other. Look up again. Exhale on the way down. So what I did right there, as I am arching or bending with packed lungs, my lungs are pressing and the air is going to different directions, bringing more flexibility to the tissues. So it is all about both flexibility of the tissues of the lungs and strengthening of the muscles around them, which is what we've been doing. In those 2 elements relies the lung expansion. So yeah, lung volume. So the next one will be, did I say? Yeah, so forward fold or forward bend. So maybe right here, we can just slowly. Hold maybe 10 seconds. And exhale into the pose. And it feels great because when you exhale, you actually go deeper into the pose. But before you exhale, you're pressing your lungs, against, that pressure again is creating different ways to expand. And lastly, the cow-cat. Maybe do 2 or 3 of those, changes of position. And you guys can just be creative and think, okay, any movement pattern that has bending, arching, curling, like you can be sitting like we are now and just go side bends or twisting. And so it's like grabbing a balloon and just squeezing it, bending it, so the air is going to press into different directions. The idea is that you cover as many directions as possible, so that your lungs are very flexible in a 360-degree, in a three-dimensional way. So let's do that. Just really quick. Yes, please.
Is that different than the Valsalva?
Valsalva.
You know that?
Yeah. The Valsalva is for equalization. Is for equalization under pressure, under atmospheric pressures of water. That Valsalva mainly, that's what it's.
I mean, they use it for like powerlifting and that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's right. Okay, just so you keep your core robust.
Yeah.
That's right. That's great.
I wondered if that's what you're demonstrating, really.
It's pretty similar. I mean, the Valsalva, that's right. You use it for powerlifting so you don't compromise your spinal cord, right? Just so there's it's protected. Yeah. It is the principle of the filled can versus the empty can, right? Yeah, I like that, and Misha relates to that too. So it's similar. But in this case, it's not so much to protect your spinal cord. or your vertebrae. It is to increase your pulmonary capacities, the volume, the lung volume, as the gentleman here. But yeah, that's an interesting thing too. So let's do a couple of cobras, guys. Steve's been ready for a little while. You know what happens is that he's done his workshop before, so it's like,
my ribs hurt so much I can't lie on them.
yeah. Okay, take a deep breath at 3, 2, start exhaling first, 2 and 1. Let's look up to the roof if possible. Relax your hips, your thighs, and then look over one shoulder back. Look over the other one back. Look up again to the roof, and as you come down, you exhale. Sigh once, maybe, or twice. Start exhaling, emptying your lungs. 3, 2, 1. Feel them again. And let's go for it. Looking up to the roof. Variation over one shoulder. Over the other one. Look up again. Exhale as you come down. Great. Now let's go back to cow cat. Let's actually do cow cat since we're here in this position. Whew. And 3, start exhaling, emptying your lungs. 2, 1. I think that's good with cow cat, and then we can just finalize with a forward fold or bend, and we can even throw, maybe we can go forward in the first one, and then on the second one we do like spinal twists. Okay, let's do forward fold at 3. Start exhaling, emptying your lungs. 3, 2, and 1. Go slow. Go gentle. Relax your neck, your shoulders. It feels great how you go deeper into the pose as you exhale, right? You go. It's a nice stretch right there. Let's do the last one with actually spinal twist. 3, 2, 1. Let's do 4 times, 2 on each side. Awesome. These are just examples. Again, you can just branch off into any position that has the twisting, the bending, the arching element with packed lungs, and do it gently, just so we avoid, if we do an abrupt motion, we may cause a tear of a tissue, so we want to go slow, since sometimes the lungs, again, this is generally not stuff that people don't generally do, and so the muscles little by little and the tissues are getting used to. So flexibility and strength. Good job, guys. Let's combine now the 3 stages that we worked on and isolated them into one stage, for which I'm going to demonstrate 1 or 2 breaths of the 3 stage in the right order. By the way, the 3 main points of the workshop is running the air through the nostrils as much as possible, okay? Because that's how we were born breathing. And we'll discuss nasal versus mouth breathing in a little while. Number 2, slow it down. Slow it down as much as possible, maybe 4 to 5 seconds in, 4 to 5 seconds out. People are talking nowadays of the resonance breathing, which is supposed to be like a in tune or in sync pattern for your heart rate with your breath. Very interesting, which is supposed to affect your nervous system at a very, very nice positive level where everything is just how it's supposed to be. It's calibrated, if you will. I still have to do more research on that, but if the curiosity sparks in you, resonance breathing. It's complex stuff, but I'm sure any of you, and I myself, I really want to get into a little more, because I want to feel it in myself, working in myself, so then I can really put it out there. But again, slowing down the breath as much as possible. 4 to 5 seconds in, 4 to 5 seconds out. Even if you want to lengthen the exhales more, better, because of what we just mentioned about the down regulation. And number 3, belly first, always. Then ribs, then chest if you need it. But, you know, baseline right here, accessory if needed. Okay, so I'm just gonna demonstrate 1 or 2 breaths. You guys are gonna do 5 breaths with mouth only, in and out, and then we're transitioning to nasal breathing, okay? And do 5 more breaths with only nasal. And then we're just completely deactivating the musculature, going into maybe Shavasana yoga pose, just from head to toes, working on what's called the body scanner, which is the #1 tool for breath holding also. Body scanner comes from a yoga nidra, which is a branch of yoga that's very mindful of the body. And so we just run a virtual body scanner from head to toes and back up. And as the scanner goes by, we may realize that we were still holding a little tension in our face, for instance, our shoulders or whatever it is. Like any body part that still has a little bit of a tension that we don't realize unless we run the scanner, we fully disconnect and let go. So that's a really nice practice, because any tension in the muscle is going to burn oxygen and energy, and you need that energy and oxygen to sustain you through your breath hold. So that's one technique. I'm going to mention 2 more techniques. This is, I'm getting a little bit ahead of things, but just for you to consider during your breath hold. The second one is visualization. So you can visualize yourself vividly, as when we were kids, that we used to imagine stuff very like a movie, right, in our heads, like a cartoon almost. Go back to that feeling, that sensation with anything that moves you, that really inspires you, that even anything that you're trying to become better at as we speak. It may be a best personal, maybe an endurance sport, or this maneuver in a surfing, maybe. Maybe you're a chef and you're working on this dish, and now you visualize it being presented to a group of friends and family, and they're like delighted by the flavors and the textures and the looks of it. However, like any art form or sport that you're, really inspired with, just visualize yourself, and time will go by without you having to think of time, and you're just distracting yourself in a very good way, visualizing actually, like programming yourself. And then there's other stuff like focusing on good bodily sensations and sounds, like the water sound, or if there's breeze blowing, you feel the breeze, how it just gently caresses your skin, and just go into those sensations and pay attention to them. It may be the music, that cinematic little music that I got playing here. And finally, you can do stuff on your own. Like I like to count numbers slowly in my head and visualize those numbers in a blackboard or whiteboard being drawn, like 1, 2, 3, and I slow it down. I go 1 Mississippi, or 1 Costa Rica, 2 Costa Rica, 3 Costa Rica, 4 Costa Rica. And so you let time go by, and all of a sudden Marcel is going 2 minutes, and you go, wow, 2 minutes, okay, that's great. The strategy worked. Okay, so consider those for your breath hold. For now, let me just demonstrate really quick that 3-stage, mouth first, and then nasal, and then you guys do it, and then we go into the relaxation phase, which could be anything from more belly breathing, or more belly and ribs, and a nice slow letting of the air out, as we did in the beginning, as we walk into the last breath. I'm also going to encourage you to sigh for a handful of times, maybe 5 or 10 times. Sighing, which sighing brings a lot of relaxation to the body and mind. That'll be towards the end, okay? Let me just demonstrate first. This is gonna be you guys. Oh, by the way, on the exhale, leave the belly for last, so you keep working on muscle control and connection. So you leave the belly for last, okay? It is better to think that way rather than thinking, I'm gonna exhale through my chest first, because it's very hard. I think of my belly last, and automatically you're gonna start exhaling here, and then the last thing that comes down is the belly. But on the inhale, first thing that comes up is the belly. So it's the opposite, okay? 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna do one more. and squeeze it all the way in so that the diaphragm gets a nice activation. And then you just keep carving or, triggering the parasympathetic, the rest, digest, and recover. So let's do it all together. I'm going to keep guiding it. And by the time you guys are working with your nostrils, I'm going to be passing by with a drop of lavender oil in your fingertip. So I want you to flip your hand in a little while. I'll let you know when. So I can drop a lavender drop in your right hand's fingertip. And then what you guys do with that is that you rub the back of your ears and maybe just kind of, maybe a little bit around the face or whatnot. In this case, lavender doesn't sting or burn. And this is a very soothing scent, very relaxing essential oil. All right, let's at the count of 3 do the belly, ribs, and chest through the mouth, okay? With O-shaped lips. 3, 2, and 1. Nice. Lock it at the top for a second or two and then start the exhale on the opposite. Keep pushing that belly up and it's the last thing that comes down. Good job, everybody. Just at your own pace, keep going on the belly, ribs, and chest pattern, order. Excellent, everyone. You can even throw in the body scanner even as you work through the 3 stages and are very aware of the 3 stages in the right order. After you've gone for maybe 5 or 6 cycles of the belly, ribs, and chest, the 3-part breath in the right order, you can switch to nostrils, nasal passages. And I'm going to start pouring that drop of lavender in your right hand's. Rub the back of your ears. And maybe some of your face, why not? So you can have that oil, you can feel that oil, that scent. Rub the back of your ears, the back of the neck, maybe. Around the jaw, the neck. My friend. Rub the back of your ears, rub maybe around the neck. I'll be careful, I'm not going to step on anybody's toes. Good job, everybody. My friend. Back of the ears, both. Maybe throat, neck. Anywhere, of course, my friend. Anywhere where you're, where you know you're going to get that scent and it's going to help you to downregulate even more. No? Okay. There you go. Rub the back of your neck, buddy. Rub the back of your ears and neck. You're good? Would you like some? Okay. Alright. So the whole shala smells like lavender. It's great. Are you getting some sun here? You want me to close those? You good? Okay. Okay. You're welcome. Para que huela ahí un rato. La lavanda es súper relajante. O sea, ya es más relajado, no ocupa eso, pero igual. Excellent. Now we are, at this point, I believe we should be shifting to nasal, guys. Nasal breathing. Nasal breathing, and that's both inhale and exhale through the nose, right? Through the nostrils. Both inhales and exhales through the nostrils. Visualize yourself by now just breathing as you live your life, as you talk to someone, as you read a book, as you write on your computer, as you walk down the street, as you do landscape, as you any daily activity that you are performing that doesn't require too much exertion. You're just cruising through your day and you're breathing that way. You're breathing in through the nostrils, exhaling through the nostrils, and then you're using your bellies and ribs as the main area for breathing. Visualize yourself doing anything, any task, any daily activity. And so that way we are also programming ourselves to be able to remind ourselves to use the right pathways in the right order, the right areas in the right order, in order to stay conscious, aware, connected to our physiology, in order to stay calm, collected, focused. Pretty soon we're going to start getting ready for the second and last breath hold, for which I'll suggest that you take that last breath in with a lot of love, with a lot of passion, through the mouth. Feel those 3 chambers. Pack as much air as possible in your lungs so you can go as long as possible on that second and last breath hold. Right now we can switch to maybe longer exhales. Longer exhales. You can opt to exhale through the mouth now, just because you have that S sound capability through the mouth, which is very good for relaxing. You have just flipped the page from your daily breathing pattern to a more preparing for the breath hold, breathe up pattern. I want you guys to sigh from now on 10 times all together, with sound if you will, with double stack inhales if you want also, which are the classic physiological sighs. And we're getting ready, my friends, for the second and last breath hold of the day, for which we're packing those lungs as much as possible and keeping that air in us and just working through that journey of relaxation, zenning out, zoning in. Let's keep on sighing. Okay, keep on sighing. I'm going to start a countdown, and I remember when I get to 1, everybody at the same time brings as much air from the atmosphere as possible into those amazing lungs and holds and goes into the journey. Remember that body scanner from head to toes, disengaging fully the musculature. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Amazing. Off we go, friends. Start running that body scanner, and don't mind any pressure that you may be feeling now. The body will adapt. Just keep the air in you. That's your oxygen tank. Enjoy it. Visualize yourself. 30 seconds have gone by quickly. Good job, everyone. Working on relaxation, zenning out, zoning in. That was 43 seconds, my friend. That was 43 seconds. Feel the breeze, enjoy the moment. One minute. If dogs are barking, we're going in a good direction. That was 1:08. Thank you for raising the hand. That allows me to know that you're breathing and I can point out your time. Good job, everyone. That was 1:16, buddy. Good job. 1:20, buddy. Amazing. That was 1:25. We keep going. We're doing great. You got this. You're stronger than you think. 133, and your body can go 136, 137, 140. We're getting close to 2 minutes, guys. Stay with us a little longer. 10 more seconds till 2 minutes. Those who are breathing, breathe with a lot of intention through the mouth, in and out. 5 more seconds till 2 minutes. We just hit the 2-minute mark. And that was 2:02, 2:03, 2:04 actually. Good job. 2:04. And that is 2:14, Steve. Good job. Wow. 2:18 up here in the front. Amazing. Breathe in and out strong through the mouth a handful of times. That's 2:25, lady. Amazing. 2:25. Good job. Move a lot of air through the mouth, through the wider airway. Move a lot of air so we exhale extra CO2. We are at 2:40. Then we still have one person. Amazing, amazing. What I'm seeing here is diaphragmatic contractions, which are something very positive of the physiology. We are 5 seconds away from 3 minutes. Bear with us a little longer, my friend. Only a couple more seconds. 3 minutes, and this is 3 minutes and 1 second. Amazing. Breathe in and out with lots of emphasis through the mouth. It's just more emphasis so we can blow out extra accumulated CO2 in the bloodstream. Amazing. We break the 3-minute mark, and you guys, everybody did a great job. Everybody increased, and this is 3:25. Let's move a lot of air through the mouth, a lot of air through the mouth, just because undeniably we have CO2 high levels in the blood, so we got to purge or offload those. So keep breathing through the mouth with more emphasis. Yeah, 2 very interesting, very good marks. Please don't kill me if you're still holding. I doubt it. I'm going to stop the stopwatch. Good job, everybody. Give a little applause to every one of you, because you just work on your physiology in order to make your physiology more adaptable to higher loads of discomfort. And you also train your physiology to be able to cope, but to be more in tune with that relaxation process, with that sitting still and sort of meditate. And so we did a dual exercise, and I believe it was great. Everybody put more seconds on top of your first one, right? I believe the second one was way longer for some of you. For some of you are almost double, I believe. So this is how activating the physiology will pay dividends in terms of adaptation. So we're gonna wrap it up. It is almost 12 o'clock. So you guys can have your lunch time on time, and you can just have a little window to maybe go up to your rooms. But before we leave, I'd like to discuss briefly nasal breathing versus mouth breathing, okay? This is something that's very interesting because it can also just bring in more awareness for our breath journey. By the way, any of you are familiar with the book Breath by James Nestor? Yeah, that's a very interesting read from a U.S. journalist called James Nestor. He wrote that book maybe 5 years ago or something. It's a yellow book. It's called Breath. And I totally recommend it for those who, again, have that interest in just going deeper into this. I started taping my mouth at night, for instance, just to eliminate, down-regulate more and to eliminate snoring and even sleep apneas, and it worked amazingly. I still do it up till this day, on and off. And I also acquired, amazing pieces of information. Philosophy, physiology, psychology, all things. Okay, so nasal breathing, in my opinion, and most of the people who works with breathing and breath training, and MDs and respiratory therapists is the way 95% of the times. Because nasal breathing will filter air. It'll filter it through first of all, the nasal hair, right? Bigger airborne particles will get trapped in there. Anything that makes it pass smaller, can't recall in microns, but smaller particles that will potentially harm the lungs if they don't belong there will also bind or get trapped or glued to the mucosa layer, which goes all throughout the nasal passages, and it is sticky and humid. And it works along in synergy with a layer of a carpet-like structure that has hair in it. It's called cilia, and there's cilia all into our lungs. That cilia scrapes or sweeps particles along with mucus, which is the vehicle to carry those particles of pathogens and dust mites and anything that doesn't belong to our physiology. It actually sweeps it into the throat, into the back of the throat, where we can actually swallow it, and then the stomach acids will just neutralize them. This actually helps it, right? So that's the filtering process right there. We have a built-in filter, an HVAC, if you will, of sorts built in. The mouth cannot do that. The air that goes through the mouth goes straight into the lungs with no filtering. So that's potentially, the cause for some of the respiratory illnesses or, infections or, things that bothers us. The lungs are like sacred, they're like sanctuaries, right? And so the nasal passages are there to protect those. So that's number one. Number two is the moistening of the air or the humidifying of the air, which happens when the air runs through the nasal passages. The air gets, again, humidified, and the lungs are much more welcoming of humid air than dry air in order to absorb the oxygen, remove the oxygen off of the air and bring it in. Dry air is harder to work on, if you will, so better oxygen usage also. And there's a couple more things. Finally, we have the thermoregulation throughout the nasal passages and the turbinates and whatnot. It's like a labyrinth, so it's almost like a circuit where the air gets, again, thermoregulated. So if it's too cold, it gets a little warmer. If it's too warm, it gets cooled down a bit. So it ends up entering our lungs in a more stable temperature. All in order, all those processes in order to keep our lungs safe from harm. Now, we go to and there's nitric oxide. One more thing, nitric oxide, which is widely discussed now in the medicine and sports medicine also world. And there's even supplements nowadays that are intended to generate more nitric oxide in the blood. NO is the short for nitric oxide. It's basically a gas that acts as an air purifier and a vasodilator. So it basically helps us to relax our the linings of the veins and arteries and capillaries. So there's better blood flow. So there's more oxygenation, if you will, and nutrients delivery. And nitric oxide is a miracle gas. It was actually awarded the Molecule of the Year, I think, back in the 90s. By the Science and Medicine Journal. And the guy that discovered it and all its applications for health was also awarded a Nobel Prize. Yeah, so it was an epic discovery for health and humans. The guy's name was, I think, Lou, still alive. I think he consults for wellness or supplement brand. His name is Lou Guinero from the U.S. Scientists from the U.S. So very interesting history story right there.
How do you create that from the nasal breathing?
Yeah, there's 3 ways, I believe, in which nitric oxide can be released or generated. And one of them is through nutrition, and that's providing yourself with the building blocks, which are nitrates, which beets, for instance, have lots of, and amino acid called L-arginine, if I'm not wrong. L-arginine or L-citrulline, either or. But anyhow, beets, and there's other foods that, free divers, for instance, they love that because they know, for holding your breath for a longer time, you want more oxygen delivery and more dilation of the vessels and all of that. There's that way via, nitrates and nutrition. There's via breathing. in the paranasal sinuses, I believe that's where somewhere in there it gets released. I can't really tell you like with such nuance, but it is proven, discovered. There's papers on it. I love to go more into the sciencey, which I like, but and then I think there is a third component which has to do. I can't recall if it was through. It was actually related to vitamin D and sun exposure. There's something in those lines, like through the dermis or epidermis. So yeah, there's 3 pathways for nitric oxide production in the body, and there's supplements, that are even, isolated, molecules that are there. So I think Herbalife, although I'm not a huge fan of Herbalife because of the scheme of pyramidal scheme, but whatever. Yeah, I guess their stuff works. It's, in some instances. I think they have a supplement called NO. Yeah, and there's other brands, I'm sure. So anyhow, nasal breathing, if you will, is the best. Is what we should be doing the whole time. Now, mouth breathing offers a wider airway in case of, let's say, you're surfing, and you get pounded by wave after wave after wave, and you have to just dash your board and go swim under, and you surface, and there's only a handful of seconds that you can recover from the next wave that you also have to swim under. And so, I mean, don't doubt it. It is the mouth that moves the most air in order to get rid of CO2 and recover oxygen. There's a type of breath that was actually named after jet pilots in World War II, if I'm not wrong. When was it that the pilots started going really high and really low when they have to come down to bombard and then go up to be away from the raiders? Second World War maybe, or Vietnam, I guess. Well, anyhow, in that realm, in those instances, the pilots were trained by respiratory therapists to come up with a way where they can recover quick and not pass out with those sudden changes of pressure, atmospheric pressures, and so they can recover oxygen quick from being hypoxic, and they can also let out CO2 quick, both. So they can be always at a good baseline to think clearly, and it's called the hook breath because of the sound that they emit. Hook. It sounds like. But then freediving took that and turned it into a more P sound instead of k like deeper in the throat. There's more of a P sound exhale. Do you notice that stop that I do in between? That kind of locks the air in and kind of presses it. And I drop my lungs or my shoulders and press my lungs. Well, what it does is that each of those little pressure gestures pushes oxygen into my alveoli. And every time I inhale and exhale, I'm also letting CO2 out. So it is supposed to be quick, fast, because you want that CO2 to come out fast, so you purge it. And at the same time, you're creating that intrapulmonary pressure. So that you do when you surface from a wipeout, you can do that, or when you surface from a breath hold, a long breath hold. Thanks, my friend. Thanks for rolling those. Appreciate it. And so that's the hook breath from aviation that was incorporated or brought into freediving. And I also like to make it sound like hope. Because it gives you hope of not drowning, or so you can try that. And if you're a baseline, you may as well get lightheaded because you're removing CO2 that's at a baseline, so you don't really need to mess with it. But when you're high, when your CO2 levels are really high, you can bring them down to baseline. And CO2 is totally vital for survival, right? For absorbing the oxygen, you need CO2. CO2 is like a catalyst, is a baking powder. Without CO2, we wouldn't be able to absorb oxygen because of what's called the Bohr effect. That's an interesting thing. But anyhow, guys, mouth breathing is good for public speech, for singing, for swimming, for surfing when we're doing, this kind of survival, for recovering as you finish your breath hold, or a high intensity training interval, and you only have 30 seconds for the next one, and there's not enough, flow through the nostrils. You probably want to really really exhale that extra CO2 that was built up and again, recover some oxygen so you can keep going. That's another way where you can use it. So I encourage you to look for the hook breath, free diving recovery breath, if you will, also. All in all, let's wrap it up into a 5 to 7 minute exercise for home, okay? Where we can comprise all of what we just went through today. 1 minute of diaphragmatic breathing. It's more than, well, not more than enough, but it'll be something. It'll do something. Bye, friends. Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, we're pretty much finishing, so you guys didn't miss anything. Thank you. Yeah, we get it. I appreciate it. And actually, kudos for the kids because they were able to stand to be here.
7 minutes short, but we got it.
They did great. Any other kid would have just run away. Thank you, guys. So 1 minute of diaphragmatic breathing, you know, and this for sure, like you can do it on your own as long as you're in dry surfaces. When we're messing with water, we always need someone with us, right? But dry surfaces, as long as there's not any sharp objects around you or anything that you may hit yourself if you, if you by any chance faint, yoga mats, sofa, carpet, bedroom, 1 minute of diaphragmatic breathing. 1 minute of intercostal. You can make that 2 or 3 minutes, but I'm saying 1 minute because if you only have a limited amount of time, that's better than nothing. 1 minute of intercostal. On your own, actually, without a buddy, on your own. 1 minute of pectoral or accessory breathing. 1 minute of the 3-stage. With a belly at last. That's 4 minutes right there, guys. Then you lay and prepare for 1 more minute, just down regulating, just slow, long exhales, nice belly inhales, and set your stopwatch or your phone or your watch for a breath hold. Take that last breath in. Full deep breath, 3 stages. Start it, just hold it, and push it to the discomfort level, and when you have to breathe again, just 1.5 minutes, that's great. Recover. You can use that hook or hold breath. And that's it. That's probably 5 to 7 minutes of your time invested in walking out the door with an advantage of your respiratory and breathing systems being activated, better decision making, etc., etc., etc. So I want to thank you all for engaging and asking the right questions and looking into the depths. Yes, one last question, or maybe we'll come.
What's the longest time that you've held your breath?
5 minutes and 5 seconds. That's been my longest in the water, in pool. Not too long ago, I'm not sure if Ivan or Alex were there. We had a group that a lady, Tracy, I'm never going to forget her. She held her breath for 4 minutes, and that was amazing. And we had another guy holding their breath for 350, and I recently did 440 with guests. That's at the pool. After actually going through kind of similar concept to here, we first do actually active training with swimming and underwater dumbbell carry and all that. And then once we have stimulated everything, now we bring it down and we finish with static breath holds. Misha has been there many times. She's currently working on her best personal breath hold time. And we do that at the end, just so that our nervous system has already gone through a big stimuli and then it can actually relax more. And we do that twice. We do 2 rounds of static breath holds in water, floating freely, which is very nice because you just feel like gravity is not there, and it's just easier to hold your breath. You'll see. So I'm looking forward for that, and maybe myself or one of our coaches, Emmanuel, most likely. Depends on how this week plays out, but for now, it's been a pleasure, guys. Any other questions or contributions to the workshop before we wrap it up and you guys get to lunch?
No,
well,
that's great.
thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for the audiovisual team for broadcasting it. Thanks, Misha, for joining us.
Broadcast.
Yeah. So if you guys want to fold him.